Hi, this is David Amram, and we are now going to hear, as well as see, some of the amazing instruments which are the sources, the beginnings of the modern-day instruments of the symphony orchestra. I'm going to begin by showing you some of the flutes from around the world that are the inspiration for our modern-day symphonic flute. I'd like to start off by showing you the flute that I wear around my neck. It looks like a walnut. It's called an ocarina from Guatemala. Now there's also a double ocarina, 2 in 1. Just as we have 2 flutes in the symphony orchestra, here is an instrument where both are built into one. There's a low register on this side. There's a high register on this side. And both can be played at the same time. There's also the large double ocarina. In Costa Rica, further south in Latin America, there is a flauta indígena, a flute of the Indian peoples, where you only use one finger to play. And further south, in the Andes Mountains, we have what's called a zampoña, just like blowing into an empty bottle or an empty jug. In the Middle East, there are some wonderful flutes. The twin shepherd's flutes that we heard played in the beginning of the program. As well as the wooden shepherd's flute. Those came from Pakistan, Afghanistan, around the Khyber Pass. Here's one from Israel called the Khalil. There's also another beautiful form of the flute that comes from the U.S. This is a shihol, or a cording flute from the Sioux Lakota people. As well as a Cheyenne flute, different sound from a different nation of American Indian peoples. And finally, from England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, the double D whistle, as well as the small penny whistle, and of course both of these whistles can be played at the same time as well. Well, now that we've heard all of these different flutes from around the world, let's hear the modern day symphonic flute, a composite of all of these flutes in one gorgeous instrument, played by the solo flutist of the Corpus Christi Symphony Orchestra. Let's listen now to the sound of the modern day flute. Now we've heard the flute as a part of the woodwind family. Let's hear the first cousin of the flute, the single reed instrument, the dulcet, liquid, evocative sound of the clarinet. The clarinet is a single reed instrument. There are also in the symphony orchestras of today double reed instruments, two reeds wound into one. Here is a double reed. Now that sounds like something you would use to call seagulls. But when you put the double reed into the instrument acts as an amplifier and makes some wonderful music. This is a Shannai from Egypt, the great-great-grandmother or great-great-grandmother of our modern-day oboe, English horn, and bassoon. Now let's hear the sound of the instrument that's used to tune up the symphony orchestra, the expressive, modern-day oboe. In the double reed family, longer, larger, and lower in pitch than the oboe, we have the bassoon. Now that we've heard the flute, the clarinet, the oboe, and the bassoon, let's hear them all play together as a woodwind section in Bach's gorgeous chorale number 138, Nun danket alla Gott, or We Thank You All, Our Lord. We've heard the members of the woodwind family. Now we're going to hear and see the brass family of the modern symphony orchestra. Now the brass instruments go way, way back in time. We all remember when Joshua fit the Battle of Jericho and the walls came tumbling down because of the mighty trumpets that were played. Here is a Ceylonese or Sri Lankan temple horn, which I got in 1978 when I was traveling there during a concert tour. This is the great-great-grandfather or the great-great-grandmother of our modern-day brass instruments, the trumpet, French horn, trombone, and tuba. Now we'll hear how far the brass instruments have come by listening to the clarion call of the modern-day trumpet. We've heard the trumpet. If you were to take a trumpet and make it about 32 feet long, it'd be awfully hard to hold that out and play it. So what we have in the 32-foot long brass instrument is a French horn where the instrument is wrapped around in coils. It was a hunting horn, and it used to be worn over the shoulder when people hunted. In Italian, it's called a corno da caccia, horn of the hunt. In German, das Waldhorn, the hunting horn. In French, le cor du chasse. In Spanish, el cuerno. But whatever you call the French horn, there's no sound like it in music. So let's listen to the haunting sound of the modern-day French horn. One of the most popular brass instruments of all is the slide trombone. Instead of using valves, it uses a slide to change the size of the instrument and to change the pitch. In addition to being used in marching bands, the slide trombone is a very important instrument in the symphony orchestra. And let's listen now to the sound of the slide trombone. Finally, in the brass family, the largest and deepest sound of them all, the mighty tuba. and heard the trumpet, the French horn, the slide trombone, and the tuba. Now let's hear all four of them play together in another one of the immortal chorales of Johann Sebastian Bach. We all grow up hearing the guitar, the piano, and the harp, stringed instruments that are played by using the strings percussively. In Italian, that's called pizzicato. But the sound of the strings being played with a bow is the heart and the soul of our modern-day symphony orchestra. We're going to see and hear now the members of the string family of the symphony orchestra, and we'll begin with the sound of the first violin. Just as important and just as beautiful to hear, the sound of the second violin. Longer, larger, and lower, the deep, rich sound of the viola. If you took a viola and made it twice as long, it would be impossible to put it under your chin. So it's played this way. The prince of the orchestral family, the cello. string family, we have an instrument just like the bassoon in the woodwind family and the tuba in the brass family, the sound that provides the foundation, the bottom of the string family. Let's hear the deep, rich contrabass violin. We've heard the first and second violins, the viola, the cello, and the bass. Let's hear all the members of the string family now play a part of the waltz from Tchaikovsky's Serenade for Strings. Well, we've seen and we've heard members of the wind family, members of the brass family, and the members of the string family. Finally, in the symphony orchestra, we have the heartbeat of music, the rhythm. And the symphony has many, many rhythmic instruments, the timpani, the snare drum, cymbals, also the tambourine, which is an instrument that's played throughout the world. Very often when we see or hear the tambourine on TV or in concerts, it's played by someone who's never played anything before. And the role of the tambourine is reduced to this. Now, of course, if it's keeping time, that's all that's required. But many places in the world, especially in the Middle East, the tambourine is a virtuoso instrument. Here's an example of some of that kind of tambourine playing. Well, now I'm going to have the pleasure of joining members of the Corpus Christi Symphony, and with all of you clapping along, we're going to play a piece together. It's based on an old Middle Eastern melody that I adapted for orchestra, and you can say that you've performed with members of the Corpus Christi Symphony Orchestra, and we can say that we have performed with you.